Alright, welcome back. In this video we're going to be talking about class inheritance. And now, before I get started talking, I'm going to write another class. And I want to call it weapon. Okay, I'm going to keep things really simple in this class here. It's only going to have two things. It's going to have an attack bonus, and it's going to have a string weapon name. So I'm going to call it weapon name, WName. And that's it for the time being. And if I'm going to use the string variable type, as you can see right here, because string is not a keyword, you know how we know it's not a keyword is because it doesn't light up in blue. We don't need any libraries to access any keywords. We can always use the keywords in C++. Okay, so now we got string, we got the name, and now I just want to set the default constructor real quick. Weapon. And I just want the default value of this to be 0. And I want the name to be fist. And that's it. Alright, so let's delete all this here. This is the code from the last video. And let's look at it. Okay, I want to delete these characters too. Okay, so right now I want to create a new weapon. Weapon called, say it's called X, weapon X. Now what I want to do, this is review, we can use the X dot operator. I want to change the attack bonus to 3. And I want to change the name to 5 fingers. No, I want to call it sword. I'm just going to do that next. Okay. We can call it sword. There were builders. Oh yeah, and do you remember why there were builders? Because I forgot to put a semicolon at the end of the class. All semicolons always go at the end of classes. Just in case you have forgotten. I forgot. So let's see if it runs now. And it runs, and again I also forgot to print it to the screen so we can figure out what the name of the this weapon is. All I did was make a weapon, and it happened to be a sword. And I can also, I want to put it on a tab. Don't forget that this is the special character for tab, as if this was new line, as you all know. In case you've forgotten, this is a tab. I also want to output the attack bonus. Let's run it. You can see it's 3. Okay, so that's what we have so far. Now I want to make a character type variable, and let's call it smart. That's the name of the variable. Alright, well we essentially have 2 weapons here, because looking back at the code, no, I want to add in a weapon here. Let's say now that this weapon exists here, I want this guy to have my weapon. That's the name of the variable. Now we have 2 weapons. We got the weapon that's inside the smart character, and we also got the weapon here that we just made on our own. Now Now you may have heard the term class inheritance at the beginning of the video. What this means is that the character class inherits all the classes of the weapons. It inherits all the attributes of the weapon, because a weapon is in this class. So let me show you what I mean. So if I type in smart, and I can access any one of these variables here. In this case, my weapon is a weapon type. And that alone is also a class with a dot operator. And I can access all these because I inherited, the smart class inherits all, the character class inherits all of the abilities of the weapon class because it's inside that class. That's what we mean by inheritance. So I can change this name equal to 5 fingers. I can just change the name just to show you that. Now let's output smart dot my weapon dot weapon name to the screen. Let's see what happens. And we can access those variables. So as you can see, when we have thousands of classes, if they're embedded within each other, you can use the dot operator several times. And this is essentially a review, except for the inheritance part. So we can actually have embedded classes, and we can use those over and over. But okay, I want to make another character. Dumb. Okay. And we know the default value of the weapon is 0, and the name happens to be fist. Not that we... And what I want to do, I want to change this formula. So now let's look at this formula here. We're looking at the void attack function. Basically, we're going to take the enemy's HP and subtract it. We're just going to subtract this plus this from it, because there's the minus equal here. We're going to subtract his current attack, which is right here, depending on what it is. In this case, the default is going to be 1, plus the attack bonus. Okay. So in this case, the default values are 0. So, here's what we have so far. I want to output smart and then smart.hp and then dumb and then dumb.hp. And then let's see what we get here to make sure everything's running okay. Yep, that's supposed to be space, but dumb.hp. Okay. Now before we begin, let's end a couple lines. And let's say dumb attacks, and we're going to use the attack function smart, and we will output the same thing after this event has happened. Okay, we get 4. Well, let's say smart decides to equip a weapon. Alright, well, all I'm going to do for right now is I'm going to say smart dot my weapon. Well, I want to assign it the value of X. Now after this statement here, I took the value of this weapon here and set it equal to the value of this guy here that has been declared inside the main function. It is now equal to the value of this here. So the name changes and the double value changes. Now after that, let's say smart decides to attack dumb. Now let's see what's printed out to the screen. Okay, well let's look. So before anything happened, they both had 5 hit points. Well, dumb attacked smart, so now he only has 4. Well, next I assigned the weapon X to smart, and he now has 1 hit point. Because looking at our formula, for the smart's point of view, this guy here is now equal to 3. And his attack was equal to the default value of 1, so 1 plus 3 is 4. He subtracted 4 from the enemy's HP. In this case, dumb was passed in by a reference. And we subtract 4 from that value. But when dumb attacked smart, this guy here was 0. Because we didn't change. His default weapon was just the default weapon of 0. And that's essentially it. So this is just an example of class inheritance, and hopefully we're getting the hang of classes in this video. And there's a couple things, I think there's one more thing I want to show you, and there's a couple things that could go wrong. We can see that we can have massive amounts of classes, which you will later on. Now before I start, we're going to start using the header files again. And then eventually we're going to get into multiple CPP files later on, but that's later. Before we start getting into multiple CPP files, I want to show you why it would be necessary. But first, we're just going to stick with the one. We're just going to learn the basics. Next video, I'm going to try to start mixing up classes and functions together. And then we'll see that we want to try to keep as little out of the main loop as possible. And most of our stuff's going to be outside the main loop, because I eventually want to cover object-oriented approaches. But we're already dealing with objects here. We're dealing with character, different classes. These are just objects here. Even a double is a class. It's a default. It's a standard class. The int's a class. But we're just kind of clumping everything together here. We're clumping a bunch of things together and calling it a class. So you can have any different kind of class you want. And next we're going to bring functions back in. And we can use these classes together and functions coherently. But that's the wrap on this video. And we'll just keep on plugging along. And we'll... Alright, that's it.